Hey everyone, I'm back with a new visual novel video. It's definitely been a while, so I want to thank y'all for holding up. I'm going to first go into a little bit of a life update thing, so if you don't care about that and you're just here for the visual novel stuff, then skip to whatever this timestamp will be. Otherwise, let me give a brief update. Anyways, this past year I was hoping to really put out a lot more visual novel videos. I have a lot of video ideas, some rough drafts written for videos, but none of that happened. I think I kind of just didn't really realize how busy my final year in college would be, so because of that, I did not allot myself the proper amount of time for videos. I also had a part-time job. I was on e-board for a club, and I had a full schedule of classes, so it was just a very busy time. And I'm saying this all in the past tense, but it's still kind of all going on, but now what with, everything happening in the world, it's very different, to say the least. And so because of that, I have some free time. Not a lot, mind you, but I do have some, because I don't have to physically be places as often anymore, obviously. And this video idea was actually something I wrote about for a class last semester, so I don't know if it's cheating to be using a class project for a video about visual novels, but I'm proud of the work that I put into it. It's not the most complicated thing ever, but I like the idea. It's a game that's special to me, as most games that I talk about are, so I think it's fun. And if you haven't read the title, actually it may not be in the title, but we'll see, but if you haven't read the title or the description of this video, the video will be about one of my all-time favorite visual novels, Psychedelica of the Black Butterfly.
So, Psychedelica of the Black Butterfly was first published in 2015 in Japan and 2018 in North America, so it's a bit of a newer VN. And although there is some romance in the game, the majority of it instead focuses on the characters' friendships and on their shared drama. There aren't really any explicitly happy endings, just really bittersweet or tragic ones. Now, what exactly is the game about? Well, I'll do the spoiler-free version first. A young woman named Beniyuri wakes up in a creepy mansion with amnesia. Oh, and the mansion is full of weird monsters. She soon comes across 5 young men who claim to also have amnesia, and the 6 of them can't help but feel a strange bond between them all. We have Beniyuri, our sweet but slightly naive protagonist, Hikage, our standoffish bachelor, Kageha, our mature and caring bachelor, Karasuba, our flirty and irresponsible bachelor, Yamato, our cold but kind bachelor, and Monshiro, our mysterious but later on affectionate bachelor. The mysterious owner of the manor tells them to go hunting for the missing fragments of a kaleidoscope, and it's through these means that they'll be granted back their memories. Alright, what's the gimmick here? What's actually happening? We're now getting into spoiler territory, and I won't be spoiling every single ending or every single little plot twist, but we'll be getting into the big ones. The characters in this group all grew up together. What's more, they went through a tragic event that none of them could quite move past. During a day of playful exploration, the friends came across a manor. While investigating it, a rainstorm started up and ended up flooding the area. The eldest in the group, Kageha, drowned, and another child, Monshiro, hurt himself severely and ended up in a coma. None of the children could move past that tragic event, with a few of them moving away and not even speaking to one another again, until finally, well into their teenage years, the 3 healthy survivors meet once more: Beniyuri, Karasuba, and Yamato. Monshiro, the one who still remained in a coma, was Yamato's brother, and the latter could never get over the past and still visited his brother in the hospital daily. Karasuba, however, took a different approach to his grief, and instead kinda just ignored that those events ever even happened. And upon meeting Beniyuri again, the 2 of them attempted to convince her that their method of coping is the best. Now, how exactly does that lead us to where the game starts? Yamato, Karasuba, and Beniyuri decide that the best course of action is to once again visit the manor where they lost 2 of their dear friends. During the bus ride there, however, there's a terrible storm once again and they crash. The 3 of them each fall into a coma and are mentally taken to Psychedelica, a world between life and death that resides in the manor. And while there, they unknowingly meet Monshiro again, who had been here during the course of his coma. They also finally meet Kageha again, the friend of theirs who had passed away all those years ago. Now we can get into the real content here, y'all. It's important to note that I'm not a psychology expert. I'm a game design student who has taken a bunch of psychology classes and a bunch of classes on media analysis, but I'm not an expert. I at least have some decent understanding of these concepts, however, so I'm not just, totally speaking out of my ass. The characters in Psychedelica of the Black Butterfly each represent a different stage of grief, as proposed by psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. After experiencing a traumatic event, anything ranging from a breakup to the death of a family member, we all go through these stages. The stages don't always necessarily happen in order, and they may not all happen to one individual, but some of them will happen in some form or another. Psychedelica's characters embody them perfectly, and it's through their characterization that players are able to understand this, and their actions, words, and ultimately endings all tie into this theme as well. The first stage is denial. Karasuba exhibits this stage best, and it's through his constant disregarding of the events that they had gone through as children. He often will try and convince Beniyuri to move past what had happened, but instead of doing so in a healthy manner, he just wants her to ignore it. In his bad ending, Beniyuri and Karasuba become romantically involved while still in Psychedelica. He somehow causes her to forget all of their other friends, and they no longer are even there with them. Karasuba tells Beniyuri that it's always been just the two of them. He completely ignores the events of their lives and the friends they held so dearly in their hearts, and because she can no longer remember the others, she takes his word, but something feels off to her regardless. In Christina Gregory's examination of the Kubler-Ross model, she writes that in the denial stage, you are not living in actual reality. Rather, you are living in a preferable reality, and this is exactly what Karasuba will often tell Beniyuri. He impishly will ask her to run away with him and leave the others, to not try and discover the truth of their past, or to stay with him forever in Psychedelica, forgetting all about their close friends. He simply denies his grief and attempts to convince Beniyuri to do the same. Our next stage is anger. Hikage is the outlier in the group, to say the least. Not much has been said about him earlier, and it's because he never was part of the original group of friends. Instead, he claimed to be the comatose brother, Manshiro, who had long lost his memory after being in Psychedelica for so long, and it's later revealed that Hikage is actually the manor's owner. He's their tormentor. Hikage's own death was tragic and painful, and as such he haunts the manor and wishes to cause pain to the others. He cannot accept his own death, so he looks to blame others for the cause of his grief. To further torment those who are unfortunate enough to remain trapped in his manor, he fills the halls with monsters, many of which were actually once humans themselves, and they've been driven insane through their time in this undead world. He outright tells the others, destruction. I've always done this, and I always will. He feels alone. He feels that he doesn't deserve the ending he received, and so he forces others to feel his pain with him. Yamato is the perfect representation of our third stage, bargaining. He blames himself for his brother's comatose state, and he frequently tells Beniyuri that it's his own fault. In fact, at one point he blames himself for everything that goes wrong. He frantically tells her that it's his fault for the rain not stopping, the fact that they can't get out of the manor, the reason Manshiro won't wake up, the reason they were all torn apart, until he finally says, none of this would have happened if he, Yamato, just didn't exist. Their time in the manor is even more painful for Yamato than for the others. He hears the constant beating of rain outside, just as it was the night that his brother was hurt. And just as one would be in the bargaining stage, Yamato gives various what-if scenarios. He falsely makes himself believe that he can avoid the grief through a type of negotiation. He is willing to make a major life change in an attempt toward normality. His brother's health and safety are so important to him that he'd be willing to die if it meant Manshiro would finally awaken. Manshiro, on the other hand, represents depression. He's been in a coma for 10 years, and during those years, his spirit has remained in Psychedelica. After such a long time, his hair has grown out and turned white, and he barely remembers the life he had before. As one is when they're depressed, he's isolated, hopeless, and constantly asking himself, what am I? What am I even doing here? as he continues to lose sight of himself. Manshiro has withdrawn from life, he feels numb and has already grown used to his dangerous but lonely life in Psychedelica. And finally, we have acceptance, the final stage. This comparison is perhaps the weakest of the bunch, and it's because Kageha doesn't immediately accept his own death. He and Beniyuri deeply cared about one another when they were children, so when she appears in Psychedelica, where he had been during his death, he was hopeful that maybe he could be with her. In the game's true ending, he tells her, "I wanted to be a part of your future. I didn't want to be relegated only to your past." Ultimately, though, he still represents the stage of acceptance. Despite his wish to be with Beniyuri again, he tells her that, "I don't regret my decision to save you, even if it cost me my life." All those years ago, when he passed, it had happened because he saved Beniyuri from the same unfortunate fate. He's never once regretted it, and he accepts it as his own fate instead of hers. At the end of the game, he lets her go and wishes them all a happy life. His death is not a good thing, but it's something he can live with. In order for the best possible outcome for all, he moves on. While you shouldn't fully rely on others for your own well-being, it's difficult to overcome trauma without some form of support. But it's also important to not coddle your peers. At one point in the game, the others keep whispering behind Beniyuri's back. They've all regained their memories, but she hasn't, and they feel that they ought not to talk about the truth for her own sake. This, however, leads Beniyuri to feel insignificant. She tells herself that she believes in her friends, they've come this far by helping each other, but a voice in the back of her head argues that friends don't keep secrets. Beniyuri holds on to these feelings until the game's climax, where it seems as though everyone else knows some grand secret that she's left out of. Her bottled up emotions erupt and she screams, "Why won't anyone tell me anything?" amongst other phrases shouted in anger. The others finally realize that she isn't just their emotional support friend. She isn't there to just take in everyone else's pain and be a nurturing figure to them. Beniyuri has her own feelings, and no one in their friend group is above the other. Leading up to this point in the game, most players may see Beniyuri as your typical Otome heroine, a bland doormat who constantly gets taken advantage of. But this moment really illustrates how much of a human being she is. She lets people walk all over her because she desperately wants their approval, but she can only do so to a point. Psychedelica of the Black Butterfly is a game that taught me so many things. Human beings need one another. We can't do that much on our own, but it's through our social bonds that we can truly grow and be our best selves. Psychedelica teaches us this through the characterization utilized, and each character represents a different stage of grief as a result of shared childhood trauma. Even if players don't relate to the events in this game, they can at least understand why the characters feel the way they do and learn something from it. From the very start of Psychedelica, I was hooked. I was immediately transported to the eerie manor, and I could feel the characters' pain as if it were my own, or as if they were my own friends. As a player, I grew to care about each and every one of them, something that doesn't happen in every Otome game for me. Even the character I disliked was someone I developed a fondness for in some capacity. All in all, Psychedelica of the Black Butterfly is a deeply tragic game that still fills me with hope every time I revisit it, and also, it still makes me really freaking sad every time I play. Each time I play, I go through those 5 stages of grief, and it almost feels like some sort of cleansing process.
If you haven't played it yet, I highly suggest you do. It's available on Steam and the PS Vita. And if you're a man and you feel thrown off by playing an Otome game, do not be thrown off at all. I gotta remind you that the romance in this is fairly minimal. There still is romance, of course, but it really primarily focuses on just like the friendship and those kinds of relationships between the characters. It's not a very fluffy game, if you get my drift. So please, play Psychedelica of the Black Butterfly.